What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Mindless Horror Podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the Carnival Takeover last month, but this month we're setting sail, and we're setting sail in a big way because if you guys have been living under a rock, Queen Mary's Dark Harbor did return last haunt season, and we're doing what we do best by paying respects, paying tribute, and honoring one of the greatest haunts probably to ever return in Southern California. And with me today to kick off that month of our Dark Harbor Takeover is none other than QM Slider himself, Ruby. How you doing, Ruby?
What's going on, Tony? How we doing?
We're doing good. Now, I've known Ruby for at least half a year now. I got to...
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, that's about accurate. It's around summertime, maybe a little bit before summertime. Maybe it's been a year. Who knows? And if you guys don't know, prior to, obviously, Dark Harbor, there was Shacktoberfest that went on for 2 years. I know you were a part of that in 2023.
I was not.
You were not part of that.
I was not a part of Shack.
I thought that's why you stayed at Dark Harbor. Was Dark Harbor the first time you scared? Like,
Dark Harbor was my first professional haunt.
Did you do... Okay. Gotcha.
We'll get into that later.
But nonetheless, I've known Ruby here for half a year, and it's been an amazing journey. We got to hang out at Midsummer Stream last year. Got to see you do your thing at Dark Harbor this year. And we're going to talk all about that. Of course, that is exciting stuff to talk about right there with the return of Dark Harbor, with some new people who are joined for the first time at Dark Harbor, and for people that have been at Dark Harbor for the past years and have made the return when it's come back. So excited to share with you what we have this month. But let's kick it off with you, Ruby. Let's take it back to the origin of how it is you got into this world of haunt and horror. Like, what was it for you that made you want to be a part of this? What was it for you that made you fall in love with this?
So, funny story, actually. When I was a kid, I always wanted to go to Not Scary Farm. Always wanted to go, never went. And my mom would always listen to the radio and listen to music in the house. And one day I heard that they were doing like a giveaway for free tickets,
Right.
And it was 4 tickets and everything, all paid for, blah, 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 blah. I was like, dude, I have to try and get that. So literally for a week, I would come home from school, get on my phone, get on my mom's phone, the house phone, and I would dial the radio station number every time they said they were doing it. Every day for a week, and it was 4 hours a day I would do it. I would wait on the top of the hour every time. And I was not getting it. And finally, they picked up. And I was like, dude, no way. I didn't even know what to do. So I handed the phone to my mom. And my mom talked to them. And so I won the tickets. And then we went. And I fell in love with it, man. And it was awesome. And then a couple years later, 2017 was the first year I joined a haunt. It was a very small haunt, not around anymore, Field of Screams in Lake Elsinore.
Okay.
And I was in a maze. It was cool. I was a little doctor dude in scrubs.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. And then the following year, 2018, it got pushed over to different owners, and it was a totally new event run by totally different people. And my friend at the time was a slider, and they were going to work there. And I was like, dude, I want to try that. So I went and auditioned and everything, and the people that ran them kind of took me under their wing and everything and helped me out, and I became a slider there.
Damn.
And I did that, and what is it? Then COVID hit.
Can't forget that one.
Everything was closed. That no longer was a thing. And then I went and did this home haunt, kind of 20 minutes away from my house. It was nothing crazy. Uh, and then after that, I joined the army and I was gone for like 2 years, so I couldn't do any haunt related stuff. I was completely like out of the country, you know?
Now, if you don't mind me asking, like, where did you go out in the country? The only reason I'm asking that question is because I know there is stuff globally, not just in the States, but in other countries. So, like, where were you as far as that went?
So I was stationed in Germany, and as far as I knew, I didn't hear of any like haunt related event out there at all. I never saw anything, never heard about anything. So
Yeah,
two
yeah.
years I was
I
without it.
know there is one in Germany. It just depends. I don't know where in Germany. I know Germany's a pretty big um, country, you know. So I just know that
Yeah.
there is one in Germany because I have seen footage of it. I just don't know where. Because there's one out in there. There's one out in Japan that I would love to go see because they got slider groups out there and stuff. So it's like I'd love to see how they do things out there. But yeah, interesting because like I know there's I think I know of one big one out there. Don't know it by name, but I've seen footage of it and it looks phenomenal.
Right. No, I've never heard of it. I'd love to go experience something like that. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
But I I got out of the army in the summer of 2023, came back to the States, and first thing was like, I'm going to Halloween Horror Nights. Like, I was super stoked to go because I hadn't been in forever. And I went, I got a season pass. I went like 2 times a week. Like I was feeding like that urge to like do haunt stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't have time or the means to be able to like participate in one at the time, so that sucked. But then finally last year now, 2024, I saw that Dark Harbor was coming back, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna go try out for this. Like, I want to get back into it after what, 4 years of not doing anything. So I went, I auditioned, and here we are now.
Here we are now. Now I want to go back a little bit to the radio contest a little bit because I have a similar story that kind of I'll never forget it. But I was trying so hard to win tickets to go see Ringo Starr off of
Right.
KLOS, and I remember calling and actually getting picked up, and I couldn't win the tickets because I wasn't 18, and I had no one
Oh.
around me at that because I was calling at school. That's how fucking much I wanted those tickets. But I think you're the first person I've ever heard on this show, out of all the times I've been doing it, that you actually won tickets on the radio and you went to Not Scary Farm, and that's how you fell in love with it. I don't think I've ever heard anyone, at least all the years doing this show, that actually have won tickets on a radio contest to go to experience something like that. So that I think that was pretty cool. And seeing your journey from going to home haunt to pro haunt, or independent haunt to pro haunt, I mean, it was really cool to see, you talk about names like Phil the Screens and stuff that's no longer around, but it's very synonymous in the haunt community as far as being one of those big time independent haunts that would pop up every season. So
Right.
that's cool that you got to be a part of that history before they shut those doors. And yeah, COVID was just one of those years where there was only so few things happening, and everything was either happening social distance or very like in your car kind of experiences. So that is
Yeah,
definitely a
yeah.
haunt season I will never forget. But yeah, man, I think it's an interesting. And then you talk about Halloween Horror Nights. I think that's the haunt for us here at the Nights of Horror. That's the launching point of this channel. That's the haunt that made me really fall in love with haunt as well. When I went first time back in 2011, and I've been going every year since. And just the fact that there's always that one haunt in SoCal, whether it's Halloween Horror Nights, whether it's Not Scary Farm, Queen Mary's Dark Harbor, whatever it may be, that someone's going to go to for the first time and have that moment in time of just like, holy shit, like this is cool. And then there's always going to be those other haunts that people like to go to as like guilty pleasures and stuff, just to kind of go. You and I have talked extensively about, speculation and whatnot coming to Halloween Horror Nights in the past. So I know your love for Halloween Horror Nights. You and I have literally sat in the panel together for Halloween Horror Nights at Midsummer Scream last year, and just hearing your excitement based off that event, you can tell how much love that you have for the event and how happy the event overall makes you as a haunt fan, especially you talking about coming back for, that 2 years that you were gone and deployed, and then coming back and then going to Halloween Horror Nights, going like twice weekly, all that stuff. Like, I remember when in 2019 I did the same thing when I had a frequent fear pass. I had a Thursday, Sunday pass. I was going every single Thursday and every single Sunday that I could. And it was just something that I had never experienced with Halloween Horror Nights. And 2019 will always be that special year that I have those memories with Halloween Horror Nights. So that's incredible to hear that all that journey leads to what we're going to talk to next. So that brings me back to like now, today, with the return of Dark Harbor. Now, this was something that got announced, a little bit before the summer started, and they did this whole big press reveal, and they announced that Dark Harbor was returning to SoCal after a hiatus of being gone since 2019. What was your initial reaction and thoughts to the return of Dark Harbor for 2024 haunt season?
Honestly, the first thing I could think of was I'm going to apply for this audition, and I'm just going to throw myself in there and see if I can do it after being gone for so long. I mean, especially jumping into a professional haunt after not doing anything for how many years, like I had never even been to Dark Harbor before as a guest, so I didn't know what to expect or anything.
Yeah, I mean, Dark Harbor was one of those events, I think, in 2019. That was the first year that I got to attend to it, and that was also the last year we would see it up until last year. That was one of those haunts that when I saw it, I knew immediately this was something completely different than what I've seen in Southern California with Not Scary Farm, with Halloween Horror Nights, those formulas and whatnot. Dark Harbor kind of took something, and I like to essentially call, Dark Harbor the Dogtown of haunts. You know what I mean? Like, this was kind of like the underground where, way back when this started, we're talking shipwreck days. And you can ask, I know you probably talked to, Slider X a lot. And we got a chance to interview him prior to him returning this season, and we would talk to him about those early days and what it was like for them. And it was just a free for all, man. Everyone was just kind of out there trying to just do new things that they weren't allowed to do, and it grew it got popular, and people started realizing that, and now you see what Dark Harbor is today, and to be a part of that legacy and to kind of carry it forward. Now, I love the kind of advertising they were saying for, Midsummer Scream going forward, that like, we're taking Dark Harbor and we're kind of continuing like it never left. This is us picking up right back where we left off, and this is us kind of continuing like if it still went on, and now we're in modern day. This is what Dark Harbor looks like. And I feel like this year, returning, and my girlfriend is a diehard Dark Harbor fan, so she knows even more, about this event than I do. But returning just felt like it was 2019 again. It felt like the event never left. It felt like it was one of those things where we walked in, we were very impressed as to what we saw, the mazes we went through, and just overall how they structured the layout for this event. I would say this was the biggest footprint they have ever done in the history of Dark Harbor.
I mean, the footprint was just ginormous. I mean, we had pretty much free reign out on streets to go anywhere, and it was like doing laps all night long. It was just such a huge, like, ground space, I guess I'm gonna say. Like,
yeah, no, I really think that it's one of those things where I would, we went a few nights this year. We got to go 3 nights this year, which was a lot of fun. We got to go opening weekend, one in the middle of the season, and one at the end of the season, which I believe was your guys' closing night we got to attend. Either closing night or the second to last closing night, because I think you and Knott's ended on the same night, which was that Saturday. Yeah. So yeah, we went that Friday, and I felt like every time that I went, more and more, it was like walking into a time machine as the season went on. Because not only did I got to see new people like you come out there and just kind of kill it, and a lot of other new talent that came out this year, but like fans of the old Dark Harbor who were there in 2019 or prior to that, especially my girlfriend, seeing characters and the people reprising those characters that you haven't seen in years and not knowing if you were going to ever see those characters ever again, and then seeing them return out in Dark Harbor. For example, you know, the captain who became the admiral, you know, he is so great at that role, and he does an amazing job every time he puts on that makeup and does it. I know, unfortunately, this was his last year, as well as the ringmaster. It was both their last years this year, and I'm so glad they came back for the return of Dark Harbor to kind of end on a high note. You know, I don't feel like they had that final curtain call in 2019, knowing that that was going to be the last year for a while. So, you know, talk to me about what it was like, kind of working not only with new people like you, but also people that have been at that event prior. Veterans of the event, if you will. What was that combination like out there on the streets between veterans and rookies?
I mean, it was like we're all just big family, honestly. Like everybody's got each other's backs, you know, the older vets and everything, looking out for all the new people like me and many others. They were really helpful and just good mentors, honestly. Like I learned a lot from a lot of different people. They're really great to work with. As for the captain and the ringmaster, I mean, that was just they had to come back. It only made sense for them to come back. And every night, when we would do the opening ceremony over at the stage, and they would like talk on the microphone and everything, it's you get chills. It's like,
Yeah.
especially like I mean, Brad, the guy who plays the captain, he faked us out early on in the season. He came back and did a couple nights, and then he was like, okay, this is my last night, I'm done. And then he did this big whole speech on the stage and everything at opening, and then he ended up coming back towards the end of the season again to finish it out with us, which was awesome. So I mean,
See, it's funny that he faked you guys out. It's like I asked him when he was coming back, and he literally told me all his dates he was coming back. So I was like, I need to make sure I go on one of these dates to see him. And Peggy, God bless her, she was a champion.
yeah.
She I think she did most of that run.
Yeah, she's great. She was out there pretty much almost every night.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was probably a night or two that she was off per week, but like for the most part, every time that I went, she was out there for most of that run.
Right. No, that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you guys did an incredible job of recapturing that nostalgia of, you know, Dark Harbor, especially going into what you were involved with, of course, this season, which was the Slider Show, which is very, very famous with Queen Mary's Dark Harbor. You guys did a lot of cool things this year with that Slider Show. And a couple of things that off the top of my head, the first, obviously, anyone who hasn't seen it yet, it's out there on the internet. But if you were there that night, which I like to dub the greatest night of Dark Harbor of all time, which was the night of the Squeaks Tribute Slider Show. I know you got to be a part of that. I know you got to see a lot of people come back and be a part of that. Talk to me what it was like of having the honor and the privilege to be a part of that group that night and to work with some of those guys who, you know, paved the way for that place right there, and to come together to celebrate someone who meant obviously a lot to the haunt community.
No, yeah, it was great. I mean, everybody coming back like Evil, all those guys, like it was nice to talk to them and hear some stories about, you know, Squeaks. I had never met the guy. I mean, I briefly met him during auditions actually. He was like right behind me when we were doing our slider tests, and we talked for like a second, but that was pretty much it. That's all I knew about him personally. But we got to hear I got to hear a lot of really nice stories about the guy, and you know, it was great to be able to honor his life and his, you know, legacy with everybody else that night.
Yeah, and like I said, I dubbed that, you know, as much as that was such a heartfelt and an amazing tribute to Squeaks. I don't think he'd have it any other way than to get you know, some of his, you know, people that knew him the best together and to pay tribute to him the best way everyone knows how to, which is with a damn good Slider Show. And you know, I like to dub that night the greatest night of Dark Harbor of all time for a reason, is because it was kind of like a wrestling show where you didn't know who was going to show up, but when you did see all the people that did show up, you popped. and it was just
Yeah.
one of those things where like you had in the wrestling terms, like these Hall of Famers come back and just do a one night only, like a match, you know what I mean? But like they're coming back to just, these guys have been retired for a while, or they keep in contact in the community, and they came back and they did this for him. And I saw a lot of great faces out there. I think I was even surprised on the final night that we went, because I had no idea that Killis was back, and Killis being another good friend of ours as well. That was really cool for like me as a fan that went in 2019, and my girlfriend. He kind of just walked past us, and at first I didn't recognize him. I gave him a hug and everything, still didn't recognize him. And then my girlfriend finally told me who it was, because it's one thing talking to you guys out of makeup, it's another thing talking to you guys in makeup. Sometimes I remember who you are, sometimes I don't, and I just remember who you are in makeup. But
Right.
when you take all that off, I start to talk to you more and more, and I know who you are. But I think it was just such an all around fun time. I do have just one complaint about the event, and I know you were, this was your first year. Was this your first year at Dark Harbor? Period.
This is my first year.
So you never got to go as a guest when it was
I
back.
never went as a guest or anything. This is my first time there.
So I wasn't a big fan of how they did.
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah,
I know what you're gonna say.
I wasn't a big fan of the opening ceremony. And I think a lot of people that worked there and came back can tell you, and you can probably get a better visual off of it from him. But from a guest point of view, when they used to do the opening of the gates, that was a huge thing. You can look it up on YouTube and stuff. You probably have seen it. But that was a huge thing back in 2019 and the previous years of Dark Harbor. And I feel like that was a great way to pump up the guests and pump up the monsters, and just get everyone ready for this event.
Right.
I'm not saying that the stage thing that they did this year wasn't cool, because it really was. I thought it was really cool to give each maze its own spotlight, each zone and icon their own spotlights. I just wish they would go back to doing the opening of the gates, but I think what made that so special and magical was having Brad out there improvising with the crowd before the show started. But that being said, I will say this: I was a big fan of how they sunk up the show with the final horn of the night of the Queen Mary. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a great way to symbolize the start of the event and the show. And there was, there's like things here and there that I would nitpick, but ain't nothing major. Like, I didn't have any major problems with the event. Like, overall, I felt like every night that we went, you guys were just kind of on a roll, just running around everywhere. Unless it was 9 or 11, then you guys had to be at your spots for the show. But even the show, I mean, I think every night that we went, we at least watched it once. But I think out of the 3 nights we went, we did catch both shows. I remember when we went the first night, I filmed both shows just to have not only a POV of different angles and stuff, but and you can attest to this. There's things that you can see that happen in the first show that sometimes will be better in the second show, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, the first show of the night's usually the one that's a little more rough around the edges, and then the second one we kind of just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I would say usually your first one is like your kind of warm-up show, and then your last one's like, let's send them home good.
Yeah.
But I would say this, unless you kind of really notably or obviously saw a mistake, or like you didn't pick up on something, like I remember watching a lot of those shows and there wasn't much errors. Like, if there was, it would be something so slight that I don't even think the audience would really know it unless you really kind of knew the art of sliding. And I think you guys did a good job. I'm pretty sure there was nights that I wasn't there, that there was a couple fuck ups here and there, but for the most part, every time we saw the show, not only was it very entertaining, it was great that everyone had a spotlight in the show, multiple spotlights. Obviously the thing that we're referring to as far as you go is you jumping people. What was your final cap by the end of the season?
I want to say, so I was starting out with 5. I was doing 5 consistently, 5 bodies, and then I tried to push for 6, kind of botched it a couple times, and I got it, and then I was doing 6, and then I got an injury. Actually, I I was doing a jump one time, and when I went to push off, my shoulder kind of like caved in on itself.
Oof.
And so that was like mid-season, and like the rest of the season, my shoulder was like in so much pain every night, and I was trying to jump, but I didn't want to push myself to where I wouldn't be able to do anything at all. So I started doing lower numbers, and then on the final night I tried to do 7, and I was almost there, but I didn't get it. But next year we're going for 10, you know.
You're going for 10. You're just
Yeah,
gonna skip. You're just gonna
we're just gonna
skip eight,
skip 8,
nine,
9.
and we're going
Yeah,
straight to 10. Like
yeah.
we're just day one. We're just gonna jump 10 people.
Day one, yeah,
If you
absolutely.
can make that promise, I will make the guarantee of being there day one, just so I can catch it on
Okay.
camera. If you
I
can
better
make
see
that
you there.
promise, I will
I
be
better
there
see you
day
there.
one.
I got you.
Okay. All right. You guys heard it here first. Ruby is gonna go for 10 people on day one of the Slider
Day
Show,
one, baby. Day
and
one.
Looney's gonna watch us and go, "No, the fuck you ain't. I am not losing you this early in the season." Um, and talk to me a little bit about that now. Looney is a good friend of mine, and she has been for a few years now. She was, when I first interviewed her on the podcast, obviously her being a part of the QM Slider group outside of Dark Harbor, the stuff they do on the side with events and whatnot. I got to interview them all through there. Talk to me what it was like having her as kind of the boss. I mean, I know this was a huge step in her haunt career, and to see her do this, which I know there was a lot of stressful nights. I know there was a lot of
Right.
things to deal with, but overall, how do you think Looney did this year as a boss? I mean, I from a guest standpoint, I saw her everywhere. She was on top of things, but
Oh yeah. She was great. She was always on the move, always like looking out for everybody. She was there if you needed anything, you know. She just a great boss, honestly. Like I couldn't ask for a better boss. She you know what's funny is when I went to auditions, the night before I was fixing one of my steel toes, and the next day came, it was audition day. I left the house and I got to Queen and I was on the grounds and I was like, "Oh my God. I forgot a fucking steel toe." So when I did my slider test, I only had one steel toe on.
damn.
One
And
steel toe.
how hard did that make it for you?
I mean, I was freaking out. Like I thought I botched the whole thing, honestly. Like I didn't do horrible, but I didn't think I did like as good as I should have to have even gotten a spot. But I mean, she saw potential in me, and I really appreciate that she like took me under her wing and helped me out, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like her and Star. I saw them a ton every time I'd go. They were everywhere. I don't think there was one place I didn't see them. Um, I felt like management perfectly captured the vibe of what this event is, what they wanted it to be, and what it was supposed to be, and how it is supposed to be. Um, and I think they did that all across the board as far as who they casted for talent and overall of entertainment purposes, and just everything, talent on the streets, in the mazes. I don't think there was a night that we went that these, and I'm talking about all of you guys, that you guys didn't give it 150%. Every night that we went, mazes were popping, scare zones were going hard, shows were just incredible, and just overall interactions across the board were great. One thing that I think was kind of a shocker this year, I will be honest with you, was and this kind of pertains to you guys in the season too. I was a little bit surprised this year that they started charging for bar tokens. But on the bright side, I know how annoying that can get from a monster point of view, and
Yeah.
having every single guest every other second coming up to you and asking you for a bar token. I talk to me what it was like to kind of not have to worry about that responsibility this year, because in the past these guys
Ah.
were kind of just thrown with this stuff every single night, and I've heard stories of how annoyed they would get with guests. What was it like for you? I know you guys did it in the beginning, but then they kind of went a different route after that. Like, what was it like to kind of have it that one weekend and then kind of go away with it the next?
I mean, to be honest with you, I still had the issue, and a lot of other people did too, with guests still coming and like bombarding you, asking like, "Do you have bar tokens? Do you have bar tokens?" And I mean, the first couple nights I had some and I would give them out. I'd make them do like three-way rock, paper, scissors to like get one or something. You know, got to make them work for it.
Yeah, you gotta.
But
Yeah, it's
then,
not free.
yeah, yeah. But then after that, like I didn't want any, so I just like didn't take any more. And I would still get asked all the time, like at least like 10 times a night, even if I didn't have them and when they were selling them.
Yeah, unfortunately, that wasn't a you thing. That was just a old Dark Harbor thing. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, I still have one of the original, a couple of the wooden ones. I do miss the wooden ones, but I thought the
Right.
poker chips were pretty cool this year of how they did them. I just wish they would have added more characters or per maze, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, they did their thing, and that was a cool concept of them to actually go to a poker chip. But uh, I want to take it a little bit back now. Talk to me what it was like with the nerves going into day one of opening rehearsal and then getting into that day one spot. Were you really nervous going into this? Because I know this is your first like big pro haunt. You know, this is not only your first big pro haunt. This is the return of Dark Harbor. So there are a lot of eyes, a lot of guests, a lot of fans that have eyes on this that are very much watching this one closely to see if it's going to recapture that magic for them. And I think for the most
Right.
consensus, it did. Talk to me what it was like with the pressure and the nerves going into day one and trying to live up to that reputation.
I mean, first night, obviously, like first ever pro haunt. I'm like really nervous, honestly. And you know, I want to like prove to myself that like I deserve to be here and like I want to do a good job. And like I went out there with just the mindset of like, you know, just go crazy. Just do what you're gonna do. And, you know, like you just gotta give it your all.
Right. No, and I agree. I think that you see that every single year across the board at all these haunts where day one, you see weekend one, you see people go so hard that like after that weekend, their voices are already gone. They're already in so much
Oh
pain.
yeah.
But it's just the adrenaline and the excitement of getting to be a part of that. You know, waiting all year long, hearing things all summer long about it, and then finally getting to that day one of like, all right, we're done rehearsing it, we're done building it, we're done putting it all together. Now let's see what the fans think about it. Let's see how we can bring these stories to life. Let's see how I can do my job into contributing into the overall story. And talk to me a little bit about your character. Now, your character was named Ruby, obviously. What was the inspiration behind the character? I know your character was more of a punk rock character. So talk to me a little bit about that, and talk to me a little bit about why your character hates Omar's character so much, because I found that extremely funny.
So going into the season, our character theming was supposed to be either clowns or voodoo or a mix of both. And so I came up with the idea of having like a punk rock like band player that was playing on the Queen Mary, and he died and got brought back to life by the voodoo priestess. And so I was mainly a clown, but I had little bits and pieces of voodoo like stitching and stuff like that. The mohawk was definitely a staple. Um, you know, it was the purple, probably a bad choice. Probably a bad choice to go
Why now?
like mostly
Why do you
purple.
think it was a bad choice?
I think you know why. Lots of people started calling me Grimace, and
Oh,
so
see,
that
I didn't
was
even. I'm not even. I'm being 100% with you right now. I didn't even think about that.
no.
No.
Oh well, it
I
was
mean,
very quick that
I
that name
thought
caught
with
on.
the I thought in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I thought with the overall theming of the event, you know, you have the giant swing set, the Michael Jackson swing set. That's a staple for
Yeah.
Dark Harbor. You have that circus theme over there that was onto the far left of the event of the ship. You know, I thought with everything and the colors of the overall event, I thought that purple really stood out compared to what you're seeing. You're seeing lots of reds and you're seeing lots of
Yeah,
whites,
yeah.
and you know, I felt like the purple was good in the sense that you know, as a character, you do want to stand out and you do want to, you know, stick out and you want people to kind of notice you and recognize you different from everyone else. Felt like what you were doing with your character and the color you went really not only stood you out because of that purple, but it went really well with what you were doing. I never thought the grimace. I could see how people can say that, but never once in my head, I swear to God, I never thought that once.
Wow. No, I mean, I definitely wanted to go with like a different color scheme than everybody else because lots of people were doing like reds and whites and like all those basic colors, but nobody ever really does purple. So
Purple's a good choice. Now, why is it that you and Lone Star over there just don't get along? What's up
oh
with
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. So the storyline was that like um the voodoo priestess was like slowly taking over the clowns and like we were kind of like rebelling. So Omar was obviously full voodoo and I was clown. So me and him would always beef at the beginning of the show and we'd fight and say like, this is our turf, blah blah blah, and then we just throw down and that's the start of the show.
I think next year one of y'all motherfuckers need to get someone in a tombstone pile driver and just that's how you start the show. And then Undertaker bell ring and then we get into the show. You guys had a very talented cast of sliders this year, hands down. I think you guys not only captured the essence of the old slider show, but also put your guys' new style into it. You mixed old school with new school. And legitimately, like you had a lot of veterans come on. You had Bricks, love Bricks. You had Slider X. You had Lone Star there. You had a lot of veterans come, and then you had a lot of new people that were on the team that got to shine out a little bit, and they did really good job for their first year. For you, walking into a position, after getting accepted and positioned into the slider show, when you saw the people that were you intimidated by it? Were you kind of excited about it? Because it seems like to me you're kind of like a sponge. You like to kind of ask around, hear stories, and kind of absorb as much information possible that you can.
No, I mean, going into it, I felt that like, I'm nowhere near as good as a lot of these other guys. I mean, they've been doing it professionally like way longer than I have, and they've got a whole like reputation behind themselves. So like coming into it, trying to like stand out and prove myself, it was definitely challenging, but a lot of them were very helpful. Tonto, he helped me on a lot of my tricks and just helped me push myself to like exceed my limits, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I think that, I mean, like I said, across the board with this team this year, I mean, and we're going to have a lot of them on the show as the month goes on. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to see some familiar faces of the QM Slider team of 2024 at Dark Harbor. But I think that, like I said, I've gotten to see the show multiple times, and I think there were, every time, even though I knew it was going to happen, it was always something, especially towards the end of the season. I feel like you guys got to the point where, like, maybe there's some wiggle room towards the end of the season where we can kind of tweak this ending a little bit, where we either extend it a little bit more or we add a little bit more to it. What was it like throughout the season from starting with one base show and kind of tweaking things here and there, little tiny things, little segments maybe you take out or put in throughout the season as the season went on? Because it seems like the show that I watched in the beginning evolved something different by the time I watched it the last time I went. Like, how was that to kind of tweak and evolve throughout the process?
No, yeah, I mean it definitely changed quite a bit throughout the whole season. I'd say like after the first like 2 weeks is when we first started to like make some changes because there was times where we would be going way too fast in one spot and the songs like you can't just like stretch the song. And so we'd have to like add things to fill holes of like time gaps to be able to keep up with everything that's moving. And it actually got changed on a night that I wasn't there, so I came back a night after it had all got changed, and I was like, uh-oh, like I haven't really practiced this, but we'll just do it. But I mean, everybody on the team is, if you miss a spot, they're gonna cover it for you like that. I mean, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Everybody's very talented, and it's a great team.
Here's some props I will give to you guys, because not only did everyone knew what they were going to do, but if on a given night someone wasn't there or something else happened and they had to switch, everyone also knew what everyone else was supposed to do. And what I
Yeah.
found super impressive with, the team this year was, there'd be nights where I'd come and I'd be like, wait, that person is not supposed to do that stunt. Last time it was this person, and the other time I came, it was the same person. So either that person's not here or that person's somewhere else or on break or whatever. But I just found it fascinating and interesting that you guys not only, like I said, knew your own roles, but you knew everyone else's role by the end of the season. So you can literally fill in for any gaps that you needed to not only give the audience a great show, but to fill in for those people that aren't there that day. Like, was that kind of something that you guys just, after running it twice daily, for the Thursday through Sunday, sometimes I know you guys towards the end went like almost the entire 2 weeks. Was that something that, like, after a few shows, you guys clicked everything? You guys knew everyone's role, when everyone's cues were and everything?
I mean, for the most part, everybody had their own designated roles and cues and all that. But every night before every single show, we would always meet up right before the show, and we would run through the whole thing, start to finish, sometimes even 2 times.
Now, what
Uh,
time would you guys have to meet up for that?
Probably like 15 to 20 minutes earlier than the show was supposed to start.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember you
But,
guys would usually linger around and
right.
do some stuff, so.
No, we would always have a meeting right before every show, and everybody would because there was a lot of nights where like specific people weren't going to be there. Like Killis was only there on Fridays and Saturdays, so the other nights somebody else would have to fill his roles, and then other times, people just can't make it or they have something going on, so they're not going to be there. So it's like, okay, we're going to have this person cover this, who's going to do this, and who's going to do this, and every time, I mean everybody covered everybody, and sometimes people were doing like double the stunts they're normally doing, which is crazy. But
Yeah, man. I mean, I like I said, I saw people doing other roles. I saw people stepping in and doing other things that I had not seen. So, like, it was really cool because every night that we would go, we would almost get a brand new show. It would be obviously the same formula of everything, but sometimes you'd have different people doing things and stuff. So it would kind of make it that new experience. And then, not to mention, we've gotten to stand just about everywhere possible there was to stand. I think the one thing I do regret is I never got to stand where you guys would take off, because I would have loved to. I think next year that's my plan is, I'm going to film from the point where you guys take off and then film at the other end where you guys land. I mean, that was a good amount of space. Now, I don't know, obviously, how much you know about, way before years prior, but when Queen Mary Dark Harbor used to operate, they would also operate within the dome right there before the shipping
right.
company bought it out, and they would do the slider show right in front. There's a little pathway right there that I got to experience when I went to go stay there. We walked around to see all the footprint when there was no footprint there in the middle of December. And I got to see all that, and just to see, how they're still making things work. I would say maybe next year we probably move it a little bit away from the entrance, just because I know it causes a bit of traffic there with having a maze there, an entrance, and the slider show at 9 and 11.
What's funny actually is the first weekend of Dark Harbor, we actually had on the side of the runway where the fence was,
Mhm.
there was 2 EMT tents there.
I remember that.
So we had to, if there was somebody getting wheeled in on a wheelchair, we would have to like completely like stop what we're doing during the show and just let them through and pick up where the song is.
Yeah, I mean, how did those end up staying there the entire season, or they move them eventually?
No, they were moved after the first weekend because it was clearly an issue, and so they moved them.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I guess it's like a band stopping a song mid-song to like try to tell someone in the audience something, but it's like I can't even imagine how you do that. Like, you're getting up all this momentum to hit a slide, and then right when you're about to hit a slide, it's like you got to stop because someone's coming through.
Yeah.
That must have sucked.
No, yeah. I mean, it was definitely an odd choice to put that there. I don't think it was the smartest decision, but
No. I think we know now for next year. I think, this was a good, I like to call it a beta test of the return of Dark Harbor, because not only did they go all out, great floor print stuff, but it also for next year. Gives them room to like, okay, how do we improve this? How do we make it more accessible for people? Like, where can we make it so there's not so much clutter? Like, I think there's a lot of improvement that needs to be made for 2025. Nothing bad, just like little small things and tweaking stuff. But I think they did a very good job fixing things from the beginning of the season towards the end of the season. I know for a lot of people that the biggest issue for Dark Harbor this season was parking. I know it was just as bad for you guys. Because I've heard the stories for this season
Oh yeah.
of where they had you guys park, and I think that's absurd. But hey, I think even from a guest point of view, I never did the standard parking because I didn't want to shuttle. We always played for the preferred parking every night that we went, just for the sole purpose of being right next to the ship. It was the closest that you can be from the ship, literally in those parking lots right there. It was just easy to get in and out of that place. So I do remember, though, on the very last night that we went, and I don't know if you remember this, but a little boat next to the Queen blew up and caught on fire.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. I was
Like,
we all heard that and we were like, what is going
yeah,
on right now?
I thought, at first, because we were in line to pay for parking, right? And I hear that, and I'm like, that's weird. I know Dark Harbor doesn't do fireworks. I don't know what that was, because it sounded like a firework from where I was, and I'm just like, that's weird. So then we go park, and my girlfriend has to use the restroom, so we use the porta potties that like are right there next to the shuttle, and I look over and I see smoke, and I look over and the boat is just on fire, and I'm like, number one, that's insane. Number two, that is extremely close to the Queen. If that fire were to spread, then that ship catches on fire, and there goes history right there. And I'm so thankful and glad that didn't happen. But it was insane. Like that, I think that was a way to start the show for a closing weekend, right?
Yeah, I mean that was not even 30 minutes into the night, I think. Like
I don't think. Yeah, I think you're right. Like it wasn't even officially, like the event wasn't officially open yet. Like it was just like like anyone that bought the early entry stuff. The actual event wasn't even open yet. I remember we were still waiting in line, and I was watching the fire happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was insane. Well, talk to me about some of your absolute like favorite moments this season that you had, whether it be with your fellow monsters or just some guest interactions you have. I mean, for me, I think overall just returning to the event in general after not seeing it for as long as we didn't. It was nice. It was cool. It was awesome because it just brought back so much great memories, and to kind of pick up and see where the event left off. It's just it was such a great time. What was some of the fun that you had this season that you will always cherish and reminisce on?
I mean, honestly, just working with everybody, seeing like the reactions that other people would get, teaming up with other people and getting reactions together was great. There's one specific thing that I will always find hilarious. Cavities, one of the other sliders.
Did he get hurt?
No, he did, but
He
it's
always
not
gets
about
hurt.
that. He always gets hurt.
You're just gonna
Yeah,
know that right now. If you ever see him scare again, just know he's gonna get hurt when he scares.
right.
That's just what he does. He's just cursed with that for the rest of his life.
I think he's just finally healing up from it, actually, 'cause he
I
did get
believe
hurt.
that.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, Justin. As you get older, your body gets a little bit weaker.
Especially if you're bald too.
Especially if you're
But
bald.
no,
No, we
yeah.
love bald people. I love bald
Yeah,
people.
bald people are great. But nah, he did something that like I had never seen before, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever. He would take a soda can and he would like pinch it in the middle to where like both sides are touching each other, and then he would pop a hole on the bottom of the can, like not on the bottom, but on the lip, like a
Yeah.
little air hole, and he would cup the like lid part of the can with his lips, and he would just stand there and people would walk towards him and he would just blow into it, and it would make the most loud noise you could ever imagine. Like it sounded like somebody was ripping a chainsaw. It was hilarious. People were dropping to the floor every single time.
Let me tell you my introduction to Dark Harbor 2019. I walk in, and I never been there, so I'm with my buddies, and they've been there before, so I'm following them. They know exactly all the mazes, where they are, and where to go. So we walk in, we go down we pass the main gate, we go down the midway, walking towards the ship, towards kind of in the middle where Infirmary was and where Feast is, right there where the stage was this year. That used to be Circus, which was their circus maze. It used to be right in that spot. So we're walking down there, and I had never been, so I'm filming everything, just kind of doing my thing. And this is the first time I get introduced to cavities. Mind you, I don't know any of them yet. Like, I don't meet the group until 2021. So I don't know anybody. So the first thing I see when I walk into Dark Harbor is Cavities looking at another monster. He has a lollipop in his mouth, right? Mm-hmm. Goes like this, right? To hand it to someone, right? Another monster. The other monster puts it in their mouth. And I'm like, did he just lick that lollipop and then put it in her mouth, and now she's eating the lollipop?
Sharing is caring.
I'm like, this was pre-COVID, obviously, because ain't no one give a fuck right there. But I don't doubt in my mind, even in today's world, he would do something like that. Oh, and that was my introduction to Dark Harbor. Care. No, he doesn't. That was my first official introduction to Dark Harbor, and I will never forget that. Years later, when I finally got to interview him, I brought that story up, and he was the one that confirmed it. I went back after looking at his look, and I looked at that footage that I had, and sure enough, it was Justin. So it's funny how that came full circle, that was my first introduction to Dark Harbor, and now Justin's one of my good friends. And, it's funny that we could just laugh and talk about that all the time. But that doesn't surprise me that he is doing something like that. I am so bummed and sad that I didn't get to go any of the nights that he was actually scaring. I think I got to go on a night that he was there as a guest with his girlfriend, but I never got to go on a night that he was scaring, so I didn't get to see that again. But hopefully this year, maybe he'll come back and I can go on a night. But talking about 2025, man, are we hopefully going to see Ruby return at Dark Harbor for 2025?
Ruby will be back.
Okay.
But Grimace might not be back.
We're going to go a whole different color scheme, huh? Like Evolution 2.0?
Probably.
You got already ideas for a 2.0 character, or are you just going to kind of change his color scheme around?
I mean, don't really know the theming yet, so kind of still up in the air. But right. I'm sure he'll make an appearance once or twice.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Ruby is intending to return to Dark Harbor 2025. He just has to pass that audition. He's back in the doors.
Yeah. I'll have both of my steel toes this time.
Have both. Don't forget your steel toes. You need your steel toes so you can be your best self, not just half of yourself.
Yeah. What is a man with only one steel toe?
Exactly. If you can work any other haunt in the entire industry, it doesn't have to be here in California. It could be anywhere in the world, or here in California. What would be the one haunt you would love to go play at for a night?
I would love to go to Ghost Town one time.
Just one night, huh? Ghost Town?
One night.
I think it's a fair trade. I think a lot of people who obviously live in SoCal would say that. That's the number one answer I get when I ask that question. Rightfully so, obviously. Ghost Town is the zone that started it all. If there's no Ghost Town, there's really no haunt. So, that's a good one. And the hardest question and the final question of the podcast. I was saving this one for last. Let's see how long it takes you to answer it. What is your favorite scary movie?
Favorite scary movie?
Now that's a wide genre of horror. I mean, it goes from subgenres.
That's a tough one. You just had to throw that on me.
I throw it on every guest, so don't feel left out.
Yeah.
That's always the hardest question of the podcast.
Right. Man, I don't think I could say a favorite one in particular, but franchise favorite wise, it would have to be either Scream or the Saw series.
Ooh, okay. So you're a fan of the gory stuff then, huh?
Yeah.
Scream is good. I think for me with Scream, I'm kind of just getting fed up with it with these newer
Yeah,
ones.
the last couple haven't been the greatest, but
Well, in my
you know,
opinion, and I know I'm going to probably piss off a lot of Scream fans saying this, so I do apologize. I love the character of Ghostface. I love the universe of it. Wes Craven is a fucking genius. I praise Wes Craven
absolutely.
constantly for changing the horror game every so couple decades when he was alive. I just feel you can't. It's hard to make a Scream sequel because in the end of the day, you're just gonna stick to the same formula that Scream is. Like
Right.
you can't really like you could change locations, you can change a couple rules here and there, but for the most part, what's
It's
the
always
entire
gonna be the same plot.
what's the film? It's someone is getting revenge on somebody, so they decide to dress up as the Ghostface killer and cause terror around all their loved ones, all their friends until they're the final person, and then they reveal themselves, and then they end up dying or they end up fucking
Right.
their plan ends up failing. It's the same fucking thing. I'm still gonna watch Scream 7, even though it's been a clusterfuck to get made. But I'm still gonna watch it because I've watched every
Yeah.
other Scream movie, and I just am one of those people that have to keep going. And I've already made it this far. Why not keep going?
I will say the most recent Scream movie is the easiest to, like, if it's your first time watching it, figure out exactly who is going to be Ghostface. It is the most predictable Scream movie in existence.
Yeah, I would say so. I still have an argument for Scream 5 that I just don't ever sit well with, and that's the fact that the female Ghostface killer was the one that kills Dewey, and she practically lifts him off the air. I don't believe as tall as she
Yeah,
was that she could do that,
the
but that's just me.
the way they filmed that was,
You can't sell me on that. You
yeah,
can't tell me.
there's no
You
way.
can't, like, if it would have been the dude, I'd been like, okay, for sure. He could
Yeah.
take Dewey. But this girl is, like, small, bro. I'm like, you're not selling me on that, bro.
That,
You're
that
not.
was so disrespectful.
It was. And then, like, out of all characters, like,
Off like that.
he's a fan favorite, bro. How do you just do
Yeah.
that? You could have killed off Sydney. Sydney needs to die already. Kill her off in 7, please. Oh, man. Well, I want to thank you for the time and thank you so much for helping us kick off the Dark Harbor Takeover. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting here and talking with you. Even more of a pleasure to know you as a friend, man. I appreciate our friendship and continued friendship, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. You know, when I decided to do this month, that you were a no-brainer for this podcast. I remember sitting down with Lone Star and talking to him about who I should, you know, I kind of orchestrated a little roster for this month for this and who he thinks I should interview. And, you know, you were one of those names that came up on that list. So I'm very grateful and glad that we got to do this. And welcome to the club now.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Yes,
It's been great.
it is awesome, and we have just set sail on our Dark Harbor Takeover, but we are not done yet. Tune in next week because we're going to have another guest on the show to talk all things Dark Harbor, to talk their experience in Dark Harbor, and overall, just we're going to talk all that horror and haunt fun that you love here on the Mindless Horror Podcast, and we love talking about year-round here on the Nights of Horror. So thank you all so much for the constant support. Hope you guys enjoyed all the podcasts that we've been releasing and that we are going to be releasing. We love doing these themed months, so we appreciate everything. One last thing, Ruby, if anyone wants to follow you on Instagram, I know you kind of very open with the character Instagram. Where can they find you?
You can follow me on Instagram at QMDH_Ruby.
There it is, QMDH_Ruby. You made it so simple. I appreciate that.
Very simple.
Very simple. Go follow him.
Keep it simple, stupid.
You can follow him, catch all of his haunt shenanigans, all his haunt life, or maybe just life in general, on his account. See some good photos and whatnot that were taken over the season that he has posted on his account. And overall, just see what he's up to next in the haunt world. But until then, if nothing else more, we're going to lay the ship to rest for tonight. But next week, we're going to jump aboard again for another interview right here on the Mindless Horror Podcast. Until then, stay spooky.